Federal government reacts to viral video of aid worker asking for President Buhari's intervention. 50 die in communal clash in Odukpani local government of Cross River State. In international news, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson promises decisive new leadership. And in sport, Kano FC suspends matches at Sani Abacha Stadium.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The federal government has reacted to a video circulating in the media of an abducted aid worker in Borno State asking the President Buhari fast-track activities that would ensure her release and that of other captives. In a tweet by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity Garba Shehu, contacts are being made with the captors. In the video, one of the victims, identified as Grace, was appealing to the federal government, Christian Association of Nigeria, and the international community to come to their rescue. Last week, insurgents suspected to be members of the Islamic State in West Africa attacked a convoy of aid workers in Damasak, Borno State. A driver was killed and 6 aid workers were kidnapped. A prosecutor general of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Mohammed Montasari, is asking the federal government to allow the leader of the Islamic movement of Nigeria, Ibrahim El-Zakzaky, to leave for medical treatment in Iran. Montasari also criticized how the federal government has handled the case without considering El-Zakzaky's medical condition, which has become a source of worry. El-Zakzaky's followers have been protesting for the last 2 years, demanding for his immediate release. Iran, stronghold of the shared Muslim faith, has been demanding El-Zakzaky's release for more than 3 years. President Muhammadu Buhari is attending Liberia's independence ceremony in Monrovia. He is a special guest of honor who would also receive the West African country's highest national honor, the Grand Cordon of the Knighthood of Venerable Order of the Pioneers. The award is presented to outstanding individuals in international affairs, government, religion, art, science, or commerce. It is also awarded for singular acts of philanthropy and deeds of heroism and valor. Buhari is accompanied by Governors Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, Abdurrahman Abdulrazak of Kwara, and Mai Malabuni of Yobe State. 50 persons have lost their lives in the Odukpani local government in Cross River State during bloody communal clashes, where 10 communities were leveled. More than 3,000 persons are now displaced and homeless there. Victor Ekwa, who chairs the 7-man committee set up by the State Assembly and who has led a delegation in a fact-finding mission, described what they saw as bizarre. The primary health center and schools in Odukpani have been burnt down and more than 1,000 pupils are currently out of school. Head of the Obom Edera clan, Etubom Efiongoyong, says the attackers wasn't his community or wants his community to go back to Calabar. Members of the National Association of Nigerian Students have disrupted operations at the Kaduna and Benue offices of South African telecommunications giant MTN. The students were protesting against xenophobic attacks and killing of 118 Nigerians in South Africa in the last 2 years. Announced Director Dominic Phillips says the step was necessary to curb further attacks, looting, destruction, and mindless killings of African nationalities, particularly Nigerians in South Africa. Philip recalled that Nigeria had contributed morally, financially, diplomatically, and logistically to the agitations that eventually led to the emancipation of South Africans from white domination. The lance official said African countries, led by Nigeria, helped in the institutionalization of black majority rule in South Africa in 1994. He says lands will no longer align with the diplomatic approach being applied by the federal government, which has been promoting metropolitan and reconciliatory solution to the killing of Nigerians in South Africa. The Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, Brigadier General Shuaibu Ibrahim, says beginning from this year's Batch C, only academic certificates and transcripts of foreign students authenticated by Nigeria consulates in foreign countries of study will be accepted for national service. The NYSC boss alleged that some African institutions sell degree and higher national diploma certificates and transcripts to some Nigerian students for between 300,000 naira to $500,000 naira. Ibrahim stated this on Thursday at a meeting with representatives of 159 African institutions presenting core members to Nigeria in Abuja, the nation's capital. The NYSC chief has threatened to blacklist institutions found selling degrees and HND certificates to Nigerians.
Coming up, African stories. Saudi Arabia stops issuing visas to persons from the Congo because of Ebola. And later, international news. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson promises decisive new leadership.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and African Stories. Troops were deployed in Malawi on Thursday to block protest marches by groups demonstrating against May's election result. The protesters were headed to state residences in major cities to deliver a petition demanding the resignation of the head of the Malawi Electoral Commission, Jane Ansha, whom they accuse of mismanaging the polls. The protesters wanted to deliver their petition in person to State House authorities because previous petitions delivered through city authorities never reached the president. But in a letter to protest organizers on Wednesday, city authorities said holding protests at state residences violates Malawi's law. Vice chairperson for the HRDC in southern Malawi, Henderson Muhango, said they were blocked because the coalition received the letter late and had no time to challenge the decision in court. The protesters accused Ansha of fraud in declaring Peter Mutharika winner of the May election with 39% of the vote. Malawi Electoral Commission maintains the election was free and fair. Although the World Health Organization says there should be no travel restrictions to the Congo, Saudi Arabia has stopped issuing visas to people from there because of the Ebola outbreak. This action messes up plans by some Muslims in the Congo who want to take part next month in the annual Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia. A letter from the Saudi Foreign Ministry to Congo's embassy in Riyadh on Wednesday says the kingdom made the decision to protect pilgrims and others. Saudi Arabia says WHO declaration this month that Ebola outbreak in eastern Congo is a global health emergency was considered in making the decision to restrict visas. More than 1,700 persons have died in a year-long outbreak. Saudi Arabia took similar action during West Africa's Ebola outbreak a few years ago. The decision affects anyone coming from the Congo, including non-citizens. Ride-hailing company Uber has enjoyed a sort of monopoly in Egypt, but now two companies are getting into the business to get even a ride for the money. They have announced some policies that would give them an edge over the well-known Uber, whom they expect to beat in the marketplace. Reporter Yuzur Hakim has the story.
Dupsy and Wingo, two companies established by local businessmen, have announced plans to rival Uber and its subsidiary Careem. Marketing manager for Wingo tells us they are learning from the complaints about the current service providers.
We have some unique offers to attract the market share. From the drivers, who we call captains, we only take 15% of any trip, which is the lowest among all competitors. We also give the captain the option to pay a monthly fixed amount, and he or she can take all the income by themselves. As for the clients, we will not have the high fare or surging price during rush hours. Our prices remain the same all along. Of course, there will be discounts and offers, but no higher prices.
There are over 300,000 ride-hailing cars roaming the Egyptian streets, and about 4 million customers out of 100 million Egyptians. So there is potential for growth.
It's a big market, but the competition is fierce with the multinationals operating here. We are planning to launch with 12,000 cars in Cairo, Giza and Alexandria. We will gradually increase our cars in these 3 cities first before we move into other areas.
Previous attempts by other ride-hailing applications have failed to materialize. The news of the 2 new ride-hailing companies entering the Egyptian market was welcomed by Egyptians. They hope they would provide better service and better pricing than the existing company.
The competition is good, and the market needs 4 to 5 companies to compete in providing the best services to the clients, especially that the taxi service has deteriorated.
The ride-hailing rivals are also expanding into buses, motorbikes and food delivery services.
Climate change is impacting many countries. Extreme heat has been felt in many parts of the United States and Europe. And many African countries have had cyclones and droughts courtesy of climate change. Now, Tunisia is reporting negative impact of climate change in its environment and economy. Reporter Abdem Chakochi tells us about that.
About 8 million Tunisians live along the 1,148 kilometers of coast. Experts believe that climate change is threatening their habitat and livelihoods. Professor Jalal Azzin is the chair-holder of UNESCO Chair on Science, Technology and Innovation Policy. He is among the first scientists who have raised the alarm.
I must insist that we are really in a critical situation. And that's why I'm saying we need to really act immediately and to mitigate climate change and consequently make sure that the future generation would be left with a sustainable planet.
Professor Azzin calls for a global effort to face the challenge of climate change and its impact on the environment in Tunisia and worldwide.
This requires a global governance system that will hopefully orchestrate whatever will be done locally on the level of countries and globally on the level of the planet to be able to really reverse the situation, even though I must insist that we are really in a critical situation.
Experts also assert that the alarming climate change has a negative impact on the fishermen's activities on the coastline. People here in the capital city Tunis and in many coastal cities say they live under permanent threat. La Goulette is a well-known fishing community in the north of the capital city Tunis. Many fishermen are convinced that climate change has reduced their revenues.
I'm not a scientist, but I can understand the impact of climate change on my activity. I've been fishing for 40 years in the same area. The beaches are disappearing and there is less fish in the sea.
Tourism professionals argue that beaches in Tunisia are disappearing because of rising sea levels and erosion.
We feel the threat of climate change. Tourism is the pillar of our economy. The disappearance of beaches means less revenues for hotels and the loss of thousands of jobs on the coastline.
Tunisian and foreign scientists say that rising sea levels due to climate change will put dozens of World Heritage sites in the Mediterranean basin, including Carthage, Mahdia and other sites, at increased risk of flooding and erosion.
Up next, international news. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson promises decisive new leadership. And later, sport. Kano FC suspends matches at Sani Abacha Stadium. Find out why.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and World Event. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has expressed a desire to defy his critics over Brexit and bring a decisive new leadership style to his position. Johnson outlined this while addressing his 10 Downing Street staff. Johnson took office earlier this week for the first time. He walked through the black front door of 10 Downing Street, his official residence. During his address to his staff, he suggested getting a dog for his office to join current resident Larry the Cat. The staff enthusiastically welcomed the idea. Now, this is a story of humanity and determination as witnessed by a Reuters photographer at the U.S.-Mexico border on the Mexico side. A woman, Lady Paris, had traveled some 2,400 kilometers with her small 6-year-old son from their home country of Guatemala and had got to just a few feet from entering the USA. But she and her son were stopped by a Mexican National Guard soldier, blocking them from crossing into the United States. This picture showed the woman weeping, falling to her haunches, a clenched hand covering her face as she begged and pleaded with the Mexican soldier to let them cross into the U.S. She said she wanted to cross to give a better future to her son. The soldier with an assault rifle slouched over his shoulder said he was only following orders. The story ended when the soldier glanced away. Lady Paris launched into the shrubs growing on the side of the river bank, pulling her son with her. They quickly ran across to the other side of the river into the USA and out of the Guardsmen jurisdiction. U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents have taken them into custody. Good for them. The home-sharing phenomenon that has shaken up the rental markets worldwide is having a positive impact on the Greek economy. The online home-sharing platform Airbnb says rentals last year generated nearly $1.5 billion in Greece, which is still recovering from a crippling economic crisis. Filio Contrafori reports from Athens.
Right near the Acropolis, the once forgotten neighborhood of Koukaki is a prime example of how home sharing has taken Athens by storm. Entire buildings have been turned into short-term rental apartments. Most of those bought or renovated in the area are used in the home sharing market, while Airbnb lists Koukaki as one of its most sought-after neighborhoods. Starting in 2014 with just 2 apartments, Nikos Boidanis and his work partner today managed 20 short-term rental apartments, almost all in Koukaki. They've hired 6 employees and given work to dozens of others, from cleaners to plumbers. He says Airbnb has created an economic ripple effect here across a number of sectors.
Home sharing encourages homeowners to invest in their houses. Renovated houses will attract more tenants. Tenants, especially tourists, will go to nearby supermarkets, bakeries, grocery stores, or restaurants to spend money. All in all, it will be a virtuous cycle for the economy.
Nikos Boidanis gives us a tour of his Koukaki neighborhood and points to shops that once were closed because of the economic crisis. They now sell everything from handcrafted objects to souvenirs, and more businesses are springing up. That means more revenue and jobs.
Real estate became more of an investment, not in the traditional sense of renting by the month, but getting more money, sometimes double or triple of a monthly rent, with the short-term rentals through tourism. As a result, home prices have been pushed upwards because more and more buyers, even today, are asking to buy such homes, smaller or bigger, to place them in the home sharing market.
One study showed short-term rentals increased in Greece by 25% by the end of 2018. And competition is likely to bring more changes to the home sharing market, at least in Athens.
Home sharing grew rapidly last year. Initially, we didn't know what it was. Then, we all wanted to do it. And now, we are entering the maturity phase. It is known in Greece that it adds to the economy. Now it also gives taxes to the state, so it's something that's here to stay. It will balance out alongside the rest of the tourism activities, and it must be done in a serious way. Otherwise, only the companies that provide the home sharing business in a systematic way will survive.
Tourism is Greece's biggest industry, contributing about 20% to the country's GDP. Some 30 million visited Greece in 2018, and according to the Bank of Greece, close to 2 million of them stayed in an Airbnb rental. That is a figure that cannot go unnoticed in a country struggling to recover from one of its worst recessions.
Meanwhile, China is also experiencing a housing phenomenon. A new trend is taking the country by storm. Single women buying their own homes. Rather than follow tradition, women are shaking up Chinese norms and are buying homes on their own. Francis Kuo reports.
Claire Dong works for a private company in Shanghai and has started looking to buy a home of her own. In fact, more and more young women are having the same thought, buying a home before getting married. Dong explains why.
Traditionally, you'd think that women only buy homes when they get married, or that their husbands will buy the home. But I don't think that's the case now. I'm not getting married anytime soon, but you don't have to get married to buy a home. I'd like to invest my money, but I don't like putting it in the banks or the stock markets. Investing in property seems like a safe bet to me. Besides, I also get my own space to live in.
The home Dong is looking for would be around 80 to 90 square meters, a cozy space for one. Since it's her first purchase, she will have to make a 30% down payment, which is not too much for her to handle. Women's purchasing power has been increasing substantially over the past years, and real estate agencies feel the change. A recent survey by Ke.com, a property agency, shows that transactions from women customers online have risen to 47.9% in 2018 from less than 30% in 2014. One local analyst explains there were several reasons for the increase in women customers.
First is the rising status of women in the workplace. Women's income is also rising, so their economic independence is increasing and they have more choices. Secondly, investing in the property market is a relatively good choice. Third, since there are restrictions on who can buy homes, many people want to buy when they are single, no matter whether they are men or women. Because after they get married, they can only buy one new home as a family.
Lu notes an increasing interest in home purchases, no matter whether from men or women. Property companies would pay attention to different preferences as between men and women customers, as Lu says, noting that young single women clients prefer smaller homes with nice kitchens and bedrooms.
When we return, sports. Kano FC suspends matches at Sani Abacha Stadium. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, the Kano State Football Association has suspended all local competition matches at the Sani Abacha Stadium. The association's secretary, Shehu Buhari, says the suspension was necessary because Kano Pillars Football Club would play their home matches in the 2019-2020 African Champions League at the stadium. Buhari also disclosed that the FA would be expecting Kano Pillars Football Club to work hard to win this year's Atio Cup. Super Eagles' third-place finish at the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt has lifted Nigeria in the monthly FIFA ranking released on Thursday. Nigeria moved from the previous 44th ranking in June to 33rd globally. All the 4 countries that reached the semi-finals of the recently concluded AFCON are among Africa's top 5 teams, with Senegal the top-ranked team, followed by Tunisia, Nigeria, Algeria, and Morocco. Super Eagles' next 3 rivals in the 2021 AFCON qualifiers, Benin Republic, Sierra Leone, and Lesotho, are ranked 82nd, 114th, and 144th. And that is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great weekend.